Okay, we're going to go over 2 on exit slip. The answers here, and remember this is over being able to find the greatest common factor of a pair of numbers. The first one, we're supposed to find the greatest common factor of 15 and 25. Remember there's a few ways you can do this. We learned the grid method, so I'll go ahead and model that as one option. Basically we make a tic-tac-toe board and put an end on it there, and we can write our 2 numbers on the top right side here and in the middle. And our job here is to pull out any common factors. And in this case, I know that 15 and 25 both end in 5. So with my divisibility rules, I know that they both divide by 5. So we're going to pull out a 5. And where that means we're going to divide them both by 5. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. And 25 divided by 5 is 5. So we end up with a 3 and a 5 left. And then my job is to see if there are any more factors I can pull out of that. And in this case, they're relatively prime. I know that because 3 can only divide by 1 or 3, and 5 can only divide by 1 or 5. So when 1 is your only common factor, you know you're relatively prime, and that's when you're finished. So in this case, the greatest common factor is just 5. That's the only thing that I could pull out of there because that's the only factor they both have in common. So the answer is simply 5. We could have also done the rainbow method where we list out all these factors. For example, if you had 15, and you could list them 1 times 15, and usually try and get these from least to greatest, and 3 times 5 are my only factors. And usually try and list them from least to greatest. So 1, 3, 5, and 15, okay, would be my common factors here. Can't see that here, so I'll move her down here. 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. Sometimes you list them out as multiplication problems. That's okay. It's easiest if you can get them least to greatest eventually, though. Then it's easy to see which ones they have in common. And then for 25, my greatest common factors are 1, or my factors are 1 and 25. And then 5 times 5, so really 5 is just the only factor since it's the same there. And in this case, I believe that's all there is. So I can look through here, and yes, they have 1 in common. And all number pairs will. And in this case, 5 is the only other one they have in common. So this is the greatest common factor. So again, rainbow method works. This way works when you just list out all the factors. And there are other ways too, but right now we'll just focus on these 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here at the second one. So again, I'm going to make a grid here and just use this method this time. Sometimes it's hard to know all the factors and to list them all, and sometimes you forget them sometimes. That's where using this grid method can be a little bit more efficient. So we've got 39 and 78. Again, we get some bigger numbers here, so we kind of need to use our divisibility rules. So if I go through, I look, they're not even, so 2 doesn't work. The rule for 3 is one that we want to get used to using here. And we can know if these can divide by 3, if they're divisible by 3, if I add up the digits, and that can divide by 3. So 3 plus 9 is 12. I know 12 can divide by 3, so can 39. 7 plus 8 is 15. I know 15 can divide by 3, so can 78. So I'm going to pull out the common factor, a 3. And you might have to do the division work here if you can't do these in your head. 39 divided by 3 is 13. And 78 divided by 3 is 26. Again, go off to the side and show your work if you need to, or we can use calculators, that's fine. Just making sure we understand the strategy here. When I look at 13 and 26, again, I notice this one's even, but this one isn't, so 2 doesn't work. But I also like to look at this number, and I see that 13, and compare it to 26. And 13 is half of 26. The greatest factor for 13 is 13. In this case, I can divide by 13 because 13 divided by 13 is 1 and 26 divided by 13 is 2. And again, it gets it down. We said it was a half because 13 is a half of 26. These are now relatively prime. There's no other common factors but 1. So I know in this case that I am done now. And remember, if I pull out a 3 and a 13, our job is to multiply these 2. So I really didn't divide by 3 or 13. If I combine it, I divided by 39. So 39 would be my greatest common factor here. Another trick sometimes is to look when you just have these two numbers and ask yourself, is the smaller one, can the bigger one divide by the smaller one? And again, we don't know our facts for 78 very well, so sometimes that's hard to do. But in this case, using the grid method breaks it down for us and makes it a little bit simpler.